Captain Kim Dae-hyun stood on the bridge of the Soul's Pride and watched the alien fleet form a massive circle around his ship. The human destroyer looked tiny next to the enormous alien vessels that stretched across space like metal mountains. Each alien ship was at least 10 times bigger than his own vessel, and some were so large they blocked out entire starfields behind them. The Soul's Pride was old and scarred from many battles. Its gray hull showed burn marks from plasma weapons and dents from asteroid impacts. The ship's weapon systems looked simple compared to the glowing energy cannons and crystal arrays that decorated the alien vessels. Any person looking at the scene would think the humans had brought a knife to a gunfight. Navigation Officer Park Min-ho sat at his station and quietly counted the enemy ships. 237 vessels from 12 different alien species had gathered in the Kepler sector for this moment. The Vorthan Empire had called them here to witness what they called the end of human expansion into their territory. Weapons. Specialist Lee Salmon checked her systems one more time. Her console showed green lights across the board, but most of the weapon systems appeared to be basic kinetic cannons and simple energy shields. Nothing that could threaten even the smallest ship in the alien fleet. She kept her hands steady on the controls and waited for orders. Chief Engineer Choi Ji-won monitored the ship's power systems from her station. The Soul's Pride ran on what the aliens considered primitive chemical propulsion and basic fusion reactors. The aliens had studied human technology for years and found it laughably outdated. They had no idea what else was hidden in the ship's core, waiting patiently for the right moment. Communications Officer Yoon Tae-hyung received the first transmission from the alien fleet. Admiral Vextai of the Vorthan Empire appeared on the main screen. His blue-scaled face showed sharp teeth in what might have been a smile. His red eyes glowed with confidence as he looked down at the human captain. "Humans," Admiral Vextai said in perfect English. "You have come far from your little blue world, but your journey ends here. Your species has been a minor annoyance for too long. Today we show the galaxy that humans are nothing more than primitive animals who stumbled into space by accident." The communication channel filled with sounds from other alien species. The insectoid Klaxi made clicking noises that sounded like laughter. Their hive ships pulsed with bioluminescent patterns that showed their amusement. The crystalline Nexari created light displays that flickered across their diamond-shaped vessels in what their species considered humor. The gaseous Umbral Collective spoke through their ship's speakers in voices that sounded like wind through empty spaces. The carbon-based primitives thought they could claim territory in civilized space, they whispered. How amusing that they sent only one small vessel to face our combined might. Captain Dae-hyun remained silent and listened to each species add their own mocking comments. The reptilian Saros clicked their forked tongues and called humans meat creatures. The machine intelligence known as the Nexus Collective calculated the battle's outcome in microseconds and announced that human defeat was mathematically certain. Officer Han Ji-soo worked quietly at her intelligence station and recorded every detail about the alien fleet. Her sensors mapped each ship's design, weapon placement, and energy signatures. The data flowed into encrypted databases that had been collecting information about alien military capabilities for over a decade. The aliens had no idea they were being studied just as carefully as they had studied human technology. The alien commanders continued their speeches about human inferiority. They spoke about how human ships moved too slowly, how human weapons were too weak, and how human shields could not stop even basic alien attacks. Some aliens brought up past encounters where human vessels had retreated from alien territory without fighting. They saw this as proof of human cowardice. Admiral Vextai raised one clawed hand for silence. Humans, you see the assembled might of 12 great civilizations. Our smallest vessel carries enough firepower to destroy your entire ship with a single shot. Our fastest ships can travel distances that would take your primitive vessels months to cross. Our most advanced weapons can bend reality itself to destroy our enemies. The Vorthan Admiral gestured toward his own flagship, the Dominion's Fist. The massive dreadnought stretched over 5 kilometers from bow to stern. Its hull bristled with plasma cannons, particle beam arrays, and quantum torpedo launchers. Energy fields shimmered around the ship like deadly auroras. Your ship appears to be a museum piece, continued Admiral Vextai. We have seen the design files for human destroyers, chemical rockets for propulsion, metal slugs for weapons, and simple electromagnetic barriers for defense. Our ancestors abandoned such primitive technology before your species learned to make fire. The other alien commanders joined in with their own observations. The Klaxi Queen Mind spoke through her bioship's organic communication system. The human vessel shows damage from previous encounters. Its hull plating has been replaced multiple times. Its weapon systems are outdated by several generations. Even our smallest fighter craft could defeat this ship in single combat. Captain Daehyun looked around his bridge at his crew. Each officer sat calmly at their station, performing routine checks and monitoring their systems. None of them showed fear or concern about the overwhelming odds they faced. They had trained for this moment for years, and they knew something. The aliens did not. The Nexari collective mind spoke next, their voice echoing from crystal formations throughout their ship. We detect no advanced technology aboard the human vessel. No quantum computers, no reality manipulation devices, no temporal shielding. The humans have brought medieval weapons to fight space-age warriors. Engineer Choi Ji-won smiled slightly as she listened to the aliens describe her ship's primitive systems. They were right about what they could detect, but they had no idea about the systems they could not see. Deep in the Soul's Pride's core, technologies beyond alien understanding waited patiently for activation. The Umbral Collective added their analysis in whispered tones. Human neural patterns show no sign of advanced mental enhancements. Their reaction times are limited by biological constraints. Their decision-making processes are slow and inefficient. They cannot possibly coordinate an effective defense against our synchronized attack patterns. Admiral Vextai nodded approvingly at each assessment. The evidence is clear. Humans are a primitive species that has survived in space only because stronger civilizations have not bothered to eliminate them. Today, we correct this oversight. Communications Officer Yoon Tae-hyung received private messages from several alien species. Some offered to spare the human crew if they surrendered immediately. Others suggested that Captain Daehyun should abandon his ship and accept exile to a distant star system. A few alien commanders even expressed what they claimed was sympathy for the hopeless position the humans had placed themselves in. Captain Daehyun finally stood up from his command chair. His movement caught the attention of every alien commander watching the scene. The human captain appeared calm and confident despite facing impossible odds. He straightened his uniform and looked directly into the main communications pickup. "I am Captain Kim Daehyun of the Terran Defense Force," he said in a clear, steady voice. "This is the Soul's Pride, operating under direct authority of the Terran Doctrine. We are here to enforce human territorial claims in the Kepler sector." The alien fleet erupted in what each species considered laughter. The idea that a single, human ship could enforce anything against their combined might struck them as the height of either insanity or stupidity. Admiral Vextai's teeth showed in a predatory grin as he prepared to respond to the human's ridiculous statement. Admiral Vextai looked at the human captain with amusement dancing in his red eyes. The idea that this tiny vessel could enforce territorial claims against the combined might of 12 alien civilizations was beyond ridiculous. The Vorthon fleet alone numbered 47 ships, each one capable of reducing the Soul's Pride to atomic particles within seconds. The alien fleet had positioned itself in a perfect sphere around the human destroyer. Every angle of attack was covered by multiple vessels. The massive Klaxi hive ships floated like living mountains in space, their bioorganic hulls pulsing with internal light. Each hive ship could spawn thousands of fighter craft in minutes, creating swarms that could overwhelm any defense through sheer numbers. The crystalline Nexari vessels hung in space like giant diamonds, their faceted surfaces reflecting starlight in complex patterns. These ships could focus stellar energy into devastating beam weapons that could slice through planetary surfaces. Their crystal hulls were nearly indestructible and could regenerate damage by rearranging their molecular structure. The Umbral Collective manifested as clouds of sentient gas contained within force fields shaped like ships. These beings could phase in and out of physical reality, making them nearly impossible to target with conventional weapons. Their attacks came in the form of reality distortions that could age a ship's hull to dust in seconds. Admiral Vextai activated the fleet-wide communication system so every ship could hear his response to the humans' absurd claim. Captain Daehyun, you speak of enforcing territorial claims, but you have brought only one small ship against an armada. Did human intelligence services fail to inform you of our numbers, or did they simply not care about your survival? The Saros commander hissed his agreement through their ship's speakers. The reptilian brain can at least comprehend basic mathematics. One human ship versus 237 superior vessels equals certain death. Even primitive creatures understand when they are outmatched. Captain Daehyun remained standing on his bridge, hands clasped behind his back in a posture of complete calm. His crew continued their routine operations, as if they were not surrounded by enough firepower to sterilize entire solar systems. Navigation Officer Park Minho updated stellar charts, Weapons Specialist Lee Soman ran diagnostic checks, and Chief Engineer Choi Ji-won monitored power distribution levels. The Nexus Collective, beings of pure machine intelligence, announced their calculations through their ship's computer systems. Analysis complete. Human vessel displacement 14,000 tons, crew complement 147 beings. Estimated combat effectiveness 0.003% against current opposition. Probability of human survival approaches mathematical impossibility. Admiral Vextai smiled wider at the machine being's assessment. Even artificial intelligences with their perfect logic and emotionless calculations recognize the futility of your position. What do you hope to accomplish here, Captain? Do you plan to ram our flagship in a final desperate gesture? The assembled alien commanders found this possibility entertaining. The idea of a human suicide attack appealed to their sense of dramatic irony. Several species began placing wagers on how long the soul's pride would last once the battle began. The Klaxi Queen mind chittered with pleasure at the thought of analyzing human combat patterns during their final moments. Communications Officer Yoon Tae-hyung received dozens of incoming messages from the alien fleet. Some contained formal surrender demands, others offered various forms of mercy in exchange for immediate capitulation. A few alien species sent what they considered generous offers to preserve the human crew as research specimens or entertainment for their civilizations. Officer Han Jisoo continued her quiet work at the intelligence station, recording every detail about the alien fleet's composition and capabilities. Her sensors had identified 17 different classes of Vorton warships, each with specific weapon loadouts and defensive systems. The data flowed into quantum-encrypted storage systems that the aliens could not detect or intercept. The Umbral Collective whispered their analysis through the communication channels. The human vessel shows signs of extensive combat experience. Hull scarring indicates encounters with plasma weapons, particle beams, and kinetic projectiles. The ship has survived many battles, yet its crew chose to face certain death here. We find this behavior fascinating from a psychological perspective. Admiral Vextai nodded thoughtfully at the Umbral observation. Yes, humans do seem to have a tendency toward suicidal bravery. Their species history shows countless examples of individuals throwing their lives away for abstract concepts like honor or duty. Today we witness this primitive behavior on an interstellar scale. The Nexari collective mind spoke next, their crystalline voices creating harmonic patterns that resonated through their ship's structure. We have analyzed human military doctrine from previous encounters. They rely heavily on kinetic weapons, chemical explosives, and electromagnetic pulse devices. None of these technologies can penetrate our crystal matrix hulls. Their most powerful weapons would barely scratch our outer layers. Captain Daehyun listened to each alien species describe human military capabilities with casual dismissal. They spoke about human technology as if discussing museum exhibits or archaeological curiosities. Their confidence was absolute and their contempt was obvious. They had studied human vessels and found them wanting in every category that mattered for space combat. The Klaxi Queen mind added her biological perspective to the discussion. Human neural architecture limits their reaction speeds to biological parameters. They cannot process information or make decisions at the speeds required for modern space warfare. Even with their primitive computer assistants, they operate at a fraction of our optimal combat efficiency. Engineer Choi Ji-won smiled as she listened to the aliens analyze her ship's limitations. They were absolutely correct about everything they could detect. The Soul's Pride did rely on chemical propulsion, kinetic weapons, and electromagnetic shielding. Its computer systems were indeed primitive by alien standards, and its crew was limited by human biological constraints. What the aliens did not understand was that these obvious limitations were intentional. For 50 years, humanity had deliberately appeared primitive and harmless to every alien civilization they encountered. Every human ship that retreated from alien territory had gathered intelligence. Every peace treaty that favored alien interests had bought time for preparation. Every display of human weakness had been a carefully planned deception. Admiral Vextai decided to end the entertainment and proceed with the demonstration. Captain Daehyun, you have provided sufficient amusement for our assembled civilizations. Now you will provide an example of what happens to species that challenge our territorial claims. Surrender your vessel immediately, or we will take it by force. The alien fleet began powering up their weapon systems in perfect coordination. Plasma cannons hummed with building energy. Particle accelerators whined as they charged, and quantum torpedo tubes loaded their reality-warping projectiles. The combined firepower aimed at the Soul's Pride could have destroyed small moons or melted the surface of planets. Captain Daehyun finally responded to the surrender demand. His voice carried clearly across all communication channels as he delivered humanity's answer to the assembled alien might. Negative. We are operating under Terran doctrine. You have 30 seconds to withdraw from human-claimed space. The silence that followed lasted exactly 3 heartbeats before the alien fleet erupted in laughter that spanned a dozen different species and communication methods. The Vorthan admiral actually doubled over with mirth at the human captains. Incredible audacity. 30 seconds to withdraw from an engagement they had been planning for months. The human had clearly lost his mind under the stress of facing impossible odds. The countdown began as Captain Daehyun returned to his command chair and nodded to his crew. Each officer acknowledged the signal and began final preparations for what was about to happen. Deep in the Soul's Pride's core, systems that did not appear on any public schematic began their activation sequences. The 30 seconds would pass, quickly, and then the galaxy would learn the truth about human technology and Terran doctrine. The 30-second countdown reached 0 with mathematical precision. Admiral Vextai raised his clawed hand and gave the order that would demonstrate the price of challenging alien superiority. All ships, open fire. Disable the human vessel, but do not destroy it completely. We want prisoners for interrogation about human colony locations and military installations. 237 alien warships unleashed their weapons simultaneously. The space around the Soul's Pride erupted in a light show that could be seen from neighboring star systems. Plasma beams bright enough to blind unprotected eyes lanced toward the human destroyer. Particle lances that could punch through asteroid belts converged on the small vessel. Quantum torpedoes that bent space-time itself streaked across the void. Taticho, Klaxi bioships spat streams of acidic projectiles that could dissolve molecular bonds on contact. The Nexari crystal vessels focused stellar energy into cutting beams that could slice planets in half. The Umbral Collective launched reality distortion fields that aged matter at an accelerated rate. Every weapon system in the alien fleet fired, at once in a coordinated attack that should have vaporized the Soul's Pride instantly. Instead, something impossible happened. Every single attack stopped exactly 1 kilometer from the human ship, as if hitting an invisible wall. Plasma beams struck empty space and dispersed harmlessly. Particle lances hit nothing and scattered into background radiation. Quantum torpedoes detonated against an unseen barrier and created beautiful but harmless light displays. The alien fleet's targeting systems immediately began reporting errors. Weapon guidance computers could not lock onto the human vessel despite having clear visual contact. Energy readings fluctuated wildly as sensors tried to understand what had just occurred. Several ships reported complete failures in their primary weapon arrays as systems overloaded, trying to penetrate whatever was protecting the Soul's Pride. Admiral Vextai stared at his tactical display in disbelief. The readings made no sense, according to everything the Vorthon Empire knew about physics and warfare. His flagship's most powerful plasma cannons had fired at maximum intensity, yet their beams had simply vanished 1 kilometer from the target. The energy had not been absorbed or reflected. It had simply ceased to exist. Communications Officer Yoon Tae-hyung calmly activated the Soul's Pride's broadcasting system and addressed the alien fleet with a voice that carried no emotion or excitement. Warning to all vessels. You are now within the engagement radius of a Terran defense platform. Withdrawal from this position is no longer an option. Any further hostile action will result in immediate defensive response. The alien commanders frantically ordered their crews to scan for this supposed defense platform. Every sensor array in the fleet swept the surrounding space looking for the massive space station or hidden fleet that must be protecting the human ship. Long-range scanners found nothing but empty space and distant stars. Short-range sensors detected only the Soul's Pride sitting motionless in the center of their formation. The Nexus Collective's machine intelligences worked at maximum processing capacity to analyze the situation. Their logical minds could not accept that their weapons had simply stopped working without explanation. They ran thousands of calculations per second trying to identify the defensive technology that had neutralized their attack. Every analysis came back with the same impossible result. No defensive system was present. Captain Daehyun stood up from his command chair and looked at the main view screen showing the alien fleet surrounding his ship. His expression remained calm and professional as he observed the confusion spreading through the enemy formation. Some ships were backing away from the Soul's Pride, while others moved closer to investigate what had happened to their weapons. The Klaxi Queen Mind sent out distress pheromones that her bioships translated into electromagnetic signals. Her hive ship's organic weapon systems had never failed before, yet their acidic projectiles had vanished as completely as the energy weapons from other species. The biological computers that controlled her vessels could not process an event that violated their understanding of cause and effect. Officer Han Jisoo expanded her sensor sweeps to monitor the alien fleet's growing panic. Ship after ship reported weapon malfunctions, targeting failures, and power distribution problems. The aliens were discovering that their most advanced military technology had become useless within a certain distance of the human vessel. Some crews were even reporting that their jump drives would not engage. The Umbral Collective tried to phase out of normal spacetime to escape whatever force was affecting the battle zone. Their gaseous forms encountered resistance they had never experienced before. Something was preventing them from shifting between dimensional states. They found themselves trapped in physical reality just like the other alien species. Admiral Vextai ordered his crew to attempt a tactical withdrawal to regroup and analyze the situation. The Dominion's Fist's engines powered up and the massive dreadnought began to turn away from the Soul's Pride. The ship managed to move several kilometers before its engines cut out completely. The Admiral watched in horror as his ship's power systems began failing one by one. "Sir, we cannot engage our jump drives," reported the Vorthon navigation officer. "Something is jamming faster than light travel across the entire sector. We are trapped here with the humans until we can identify and neutralize the interference source." Similar reports flooded in from ships throughout the alien fleet. Species that had mastered interstellar travel for thousands of years found themselves unable to leave the battle zone. Their most sophisticated propulsion systems had been reduced to useless collections of metal and energy conduits. Whatever was protecting the human ship was also preventing their escape. The Nexari Collective attempted to communicate with their crystal matrix hulls at the quantum level. Their ships were living beings in a sense, with consciousness distributed throughout their crystalline structure. They discovered that something was interfering with their quantum communication networks. The crystals could no longer coordinate their defensive and offensive capabilities. Captain Daehyun walked across his bridge to the weapons station, where Specialist Lee Sumin waited patiently for orders. Her console showed readiness indicators for systems that did not appear on any known schematic of human military vessels. The weapons she controlled were not mounted on the Soul's Pride or any other human ship. They existed in locations the aliens had never suspected. "Sir, all alien vessels are now within the engagement perimeter," reported Navigation Officer Park Minho. Their movement capabilities have been neutralized and their weapon systems are non-functional. The fleet is completely trapped and defenseless. The alien commanders were beginning to understand that they faced something far beyond their comprehension. The humans had not brought superior firepower to this engagement. They had brought a technology that made firepower irrelevant. Whatever was protecting the soul's pride was also capable of disabling the most advanced weapons and propulsion systems in the galaxy. Engineer Choi Ji-won monitored power flows from her station and smiled as she watched her instruments track energy patterns that spanned light years. The aliens thought they were fighting one small human ship, but they were actually facing a weapon system that had been under construction for decades. Every human exploration mission had contributed to its development. Every apparent retreat had been part of its deployment. Communications Officer Yoon Tae-hyung received desperate signals from alien ships throughout the fleet. Some commanders were offering immediate surrender and requesting safe passage from the battle zone. Others were demanding explanations for what had happened to their weapons. A few were still trying to issue threats despite their obvious helplessness. Captain Dae-hyun returned to his command chair and nodded to weapons specialist Lee So-min. She acknowledged the signal and placed her hand on a single control surface that had remained inactive throughout the Soul's Pride's service history. The control was not connected to any weapon system aboard the ship because it was not designed to control shipboard weapons. "Execute Terran Doctrine," ordered Captain Dae-hyun in a quiet voice that carried clearly through the bridge. The words activated protocols that had been waiting patiently for this moment. Across the galaxy, systems that had been hidden for decades began their final preparations. The aliens were about to learn the true meaning of human military planning. Weapons. Specialist Lee So-min looked up at her captain with calm professionalism. "Sir, the network is fully charged and ready for activation. All targets have been acquired and verified. We are ready to demonstrate the consequences of underestimating human capabilities." The alien fleet hung motionless in space around the Soul's Pride, their weapons useless and their engines dead. They had come to witness the destruction of human expansion into their territory. Instead, they were about to witness the most devastating display of military power in galactic history. The humans had been preparing for this moment longer than any alien civilization suspected. As weapons specialist Lee So-min activated the control surface, space itself began to change around the trapped alien fleet. The transformation started as a barely visible shimmer in the void, like heat waves rising from sun-baked ground. Within seconds, the shimmer spread outward from the Soul's Pride in all directions, creating ripples in reality that the alien sensors could finally detect. The Nexus Collective's machine intelligences were the first to understand what they were seeing. Their perfect logic circuits processed the impossible data and reached a conclusion that violated everything they knew about warfare and technology. Alert. The human vessel is not the source of the defensive field. The human vessel is a control node for a distributed weapon system spanning multiple light years. Admiral Vextai studied the readings from his flagship sensors and felt something he had not experienced in centuries of military service: genuine fear. The energy patterns spreading through space were not coming from the Soul's Pride. They were coming from points in space that had appeared empty for decades. Asteroids that his fleet had ignored were revealing themselves as camouflaged weapon platforms. Navigation Officer Park Min-ho activated the Soul's Pride's communication array and addressed the alien fleet with information that would reshape their understanding of human capabilities. For 50 years, every time your species encountered human vessels, you dismissed them as primitive and harmless. Every time you forced us to retreat, we were actually gathering intelligence and positioning assets. The aliens began detecting massive energy buildups throughout the Kepler sector. Objects they had classified as space debris were revealing sophisticated technology hidden beneath layers of camouflage. Defunct satellites that had drifted motionless for decades suddenly came online with power signatures that dwarfed most starships. Dead asteroids cracked open to reveal weapon systems that had been waiting patiently for activation. Chief Engineer Choi Ji-won added more details that made the alien commanders understand the scope of their miscalculation. Every human exploration vessel you encountered was installing quantum resonators disguised as navigation beacons. Every mining operation you allowed in your territory was placing weapon nodes disguised as industrial equipment. Every peaceful trade mission was mapping your defensive capabilities. The Claxi Queen Mind sent out panic pheromones as her bioships detected the quantum network spreading through space around them. Her organic sensors could feel the artificial structures connecting to each other across impossible distances. The humans had been building a weapon that used space itself as its foundation. Every star system the aliens controlled was now part of the human weapon network. The Umbral Collective tried desperately to phase shift into alternate dimensions to escape whatever was happening in normal space. They discovered that the quantum field was affecting multiple layers of reality simultaneously. The humans had not just built a weapon that worked in their dimension, they had built one that could reach across dimensional boundaries. Officer Han Jisu expanded her intelligence, briefing to include information that would terrify every alien civilization in the galaxy. Every peace treaty your government signed with humanity included provisions for human scientific research stations. Those stations were not studying astronomy or physics. They were installing components of the largest weapon system ever constructed. The Soros commander hissed in rage and disbelief as he realized how thoroughly his species had been deceived. The mammals were never retreating from our territory. They were using our own arrogance against us. They allowed us to think we were superior while they built a trap around our entire civilization. Captain Daehyun stood up and walked to the center of his bridge where he could address all the alien vessels simultaneously. His voice carried the authority of someone who had helped plan one of the most ambitious military operations in galactic history. The Terran doctrine was never about building bigger ships or more powerful weapons. It was about making the galaxy itself our weapon. The Nexari collective mind struggled to process the implications of what the humans had accomplished. Their crystal matrices could calculate millions of possibilities per second, but they had never considered the possibility that a species could turn entire star systems into weapons platforms. The humans had been thinking on a scale that even machine intelligences had not imagined. The revelation hit the alien fleet like a physical force. They were not facing a single human ship or even a human fleet. They were facing a weapon network that spanned dozens of star systems and had been under construction for half a century. Every time they had laughed at human technology, the humans had been installing another piece of their galactic weapon. Admiral Vexi Tai tried to contact his government to warn them about the human deception, but his long-range communications were being jammed by the same field that had disabled his weapons and engines. The quantum network was not just a weapon. It was also a perfect information control system. The aliens could not warn their homeworlds about what was happening in the Kepler sector engineer Choi Ji-won provided the final piece of the puzzle that explained how humanity had achieved the impossible. Your species studied our technology and found it primitive because we wanted you to think it was primitive. Every human vessel you encountered showed you exactly what we wanted you to see. Our real technology was never installed on ships you could capture or analyze. The aliens began to understand that every encounter with humanity had been carefully orchestrated. The humans who had seemed so helpless and backward had actually been master manipulators playing a game with rules no one else understood. Every apparent weakness had been a calculated display designed to hide their true capabilities. Communications Officer Yoon Tae-hyung received distress signals from alien vessels throughout the galaxy as the quantum network revealed its true scope. Human weapon platforms were coming online in star systems that the aliens had considered completely secure. Their most important military installations were discovering that they had been surrounded by human weapons for years without knowing. And the Fourth Han Admiral realized that his empire's most critical weakness had been their assumption of superiority. They had been so convinced of their technological advantage that they had never considered the possibility that the humans were deliberately appearing primitive. The greatest military minds in Vorthan history had been outmaneuvered by a species they considered barely civilized. Captain Daehyun delivered the final revelation that would haunt alien nightmares for generations to come. Every star system you have seen humans retreat from has been prepared as part of our weapon network. Every colony world you forced us to abandon was actually a command center for local weapon installations. Every defeat you inflicted on our Forces gave us time to complete another phase of our preparations. The alien fleet hung motionless in space as the scope of human deception became clear. They had not been conquering human territory. They had been walking into the largest trap in galactic history. The humans had spent 50 years convincing every alien species that they were harmless, while building a weapon system that could destroy entire civilizations. Weapons. Specialist Lee Sumin looked up from her control station and reported the status that every alien commander dreaded to hear. Sir, the quantum network is fully operational across 47 star systems. All major alien military installations have been targeted and are ready for engagement. We can destroy their entire war-making capacity with a single command. The aliens finally understood why the humans had never built large fleets or impressive warships. They had not needed to compete in traditional military terms because they had been building something far more dangerous. They had turned the galaxy itself into their weapon, and now every alien civilization was at their mercy. Admiral Vextai stared at the tactical display showing his helpless fleet surrounded by energy patterns that could erase them from existence. He had come to witness the end of human expansion, but instead he was witnessing the beginning of human dominance over the galaxy. The primitive species had become the most dangerous military force in known space. Captain Daehyun returned to his command chair and looked out at the alien fleet that had come to witness humanity's destruction. The irony was perfect. These representatives from 12 civilizations would indeed witness a historical moment, but not the one they had expected. They would see the day that humanity announced itself as the dominant military power in the galaxy. The quantum network hummed with energy that transcended normal understanding of physics. Across 47 star systems, weapon platforms that had waited decades for this moment prepared for simultaneous activation. The aliens had mocked human technology for being primitive, but they had never encountered technology that operated outside the boundaries of conventional science. Admiral Vextai made one final attempt to negotiate with the humans, though his position was hopeless. Captain Daehyun, surely we can reach some understanding. Our civilizations have coexisted for decades without major conflict. There is no need for unnecessary destruction here today. Captain Daehyun listened to the aliens' plea with the same calm professionalism he had shown throughout the encounter. Admiral, your civilizations have spent those decades treating humanity as an inferior species. You came here today to demonstrate our weakness and end our expansion into space. You will receive the demonstration you requested, but the lesson will be different than you planned. The Soul's Pride remained motionless at the center of the alien formation, while energy patterns spread through space around them. The ship itself had never been important to the engagement. It was simply a trigger for a weapon system that spanned multiple star systems and operated on principles that no alien civilization had ever mastered. Weapons specialist Lee Sumin reported the final status check that would change galactic history forever. Sir, all quantum resonators are synchronized and ready for activation. The network has achieved perfect coherence across all targeted systems. We have confirmed locks on every major alien military installation, shipyard, and strategic resource point in the affected sectors. The aliens began to understand that the humans had not just built a weapon to win this single battle. They had built a weapon to fundamentally alter the balance of power in the galaxy. Every species that had treated humanity as inferior was about to learn the consequences of their arrogance in the most dramatic way possible. Communications Officer Yoon Tae-hyung received surrender offers from alien vessels throughout the fleet, but the time for negotiation had passed. The Terran Doctrine did not include provisions for accepting surrender from species that had threatened human extinction. The lesson about underestimating humanity needed to be complete and unmistakable. Captain Daehyun gave the order that would echo through galactic history for thousands of years. Execute Terran Doctrine Protocol 7. His voice carried the authority of humanity's collective decision to never again allow other species to threaten their survival or expansion into space. Weapons Specialist Lee Sumin pressed the single control that connected her to the quantum network spanning light years of space. The Soul's Pride did not fire a weapon in any conventional sense. The ship did not need to fire anything because it was not the weapon. The ship was simply the key that unlocked something far more terrible and magnificent. Across the Kepler sector, reality itself became humanity's weapon. Quantum resonators that had masqueraded as space debris for decades suddenly linked together in a web of destruction that spanned multiple star systems. The network did not target just the alien fleet surrounding the Soul's Pride. It targeted every major military asset that every species in the sector had built over the past millennium. The weapon fired once, but that single activation reached across impossible distances to strike simultaneously at targets throughout known space. It was not a beam or a projectile, or even energy in any form that alien science could understand. It was a localized alteration of the fundamental forces that held matter together. Within the affected areas, the basic laws of physics that governed atomic structure simply stopped working the way they should. The strong nuclear force that held protons and neutrons together in atomic nuclei weakened beyond the point where matter could maintain coherence. The electromagnetic force that bound electrons to atoms fluctuated randomly, making molecular bonds impossible to maintain. The massive alien fleet did not explode in fire and light. The ships did not burn or melt or suffer any conventional form of destruction. They simply ceased to exist as organized matter, converting to their component atoms in a fraction of a second. 237 vessels that had represented the combined military might of 12 civilizations became clouds of disconnected particles floating in space. The same fate befell military installations across dozens of star systems simultaneously. Orbital defense platforms, shipyards, weapons manufacturing facilities, and strategic command centers experienced identical atomic dissolution. The quantum network reached across the galaxy to eliminate every military asset that posed a threat to human expansion. Officer Han Jisoo monitored the results of the weapon's activation and reported the scope of its success. Sir, we have confirmed successful engagement of targets in 47 star systems. All major alien military installations in the affected sectors have been neutralized. Estimated reduction in hostile military capacity exceeds 97%. The weapon's effects were not random or indiscriminate. The quantum network had been programmed with precise targeting information gathered over 50 years of careful intelligence work. Civilian populations, non-military installations, and neutral parties remained completely unaffected. Only those assets that threatened human interests experienced atomic dissolution. Captain Daehyun stood up and walked to the view screen, where moments before an alien armada had surrounded his ship. Now only empty space remained, dotted with clouds of atomic particles that had once been the galaxy's most powerful warships. The demonstration was complete, and its message would spread throughout known space within days. Communications Officer Yoon Tae-hyung activated the Soul's Pride's broadcasting system to address the galaxy with humanity's new position on interstellar relations. The message would reach every major alien civilization through their communication networks and quantum relay systems. This is Captain Kim Dae-hyun of the Terran Defense Force, speaking for humanity and the Terran Doctrine. The species gathered here today came to demonstrate humanity's weakness and end our expansion into space. They have instead witnessed the price of underestimating human capabilities. The message continued with information that would reshape galactic politics forever. Any species that wishes to coexist peacefully with humanity will find us reasonable neighbors willing to engage in fair trade and mutual cooperation. Any species that views humans as prey or seeks to limit our expansion will discover the consequences of that mistake. Engineer Choi Ji-won reported the status of the quantum network following its activation. Sir, the weapon system remains fully operational and continues to expand into new star systems. Our exploration vessels are installing additional resonators, on schedule. The network grows stronger every day. The implications were staggering for every alien civilization monitoring the transmission. The humans had not just demonstrated a devastating weapon, they had revealed that this weapon was still growing. Every human ship that ventured into space was potentially adding to a weapon system that could reach anywhere in the galaxy. Navigation Officer Park Min-ho prepared the Soul's Pride for departure from the Kepler sector. The ship had accomplished its mission completely. The alien threat to human expansion had been eliminated, and the galaxy now understood humanity's true capabilities. It was time to move on to the next phase of human expansion into space. Captain Daehyun delivered his final message to the galaxy before departing the battle site. Humanity has been underestimated for the last time. We have turned your assumptions about our weakness into our greatest strength. The galaxy is large enough for all civilizations that choose to respect human territorial claims and expansion rights. The Soul's Pride engaged its jump drives and disappeared from the Kepler sector, leaving behind only atomic particles where an alien armada had existed minutes before. The ship carried its crew toward their next destination, where they would install additional components of humanity's ever-expanding galactic weapon network. Across the galaxy, alien civilizations that had received the transmission began emergency sessions to reconsider their policies toward humanity. The species they had dismissed as primitive had demonstrated technology beyond their comprehension and military planning that spanned decades. The balance of power in the galaxy had shifted permanently in humanity's favor. The title's promise had been fulfilled completely. The aliens had mocked the human ship, brought their greatest fleet to destroy it, and watched their entire armada disappear when humanity fired once. Nothing that threatened human expansion had survived, and the galaxy would never underestimate human capabilities again.